how do mediums develop? And what could possibly happen in anyone's life that would lead them to becoming a medium or desiring to study mediumship?
Welcome to the Angelscapes podcast, where you're encouraged to uncover and develop a direct connection with your soul's power, wisdom, and spiritual intuition that is ready to blossom. We'll explore new ideas, compelling tips, and real steps to help you learn simple spiritual practices. We're a safe place to learn more about accessing your soul's power with education and spiritual wholeness that could bring more clarity to your life. Now here's your host, a practicing medium, Akashic Records practitioner, spirit artist, coach, and mentor, Dr. Reverend Nancy Smith.
This is Angelscapes, and I'm your host, Nancy Smith, and joining me is Scott Allan for a conversation about how he became a medium. He started as a very compassionate funeral director and working with people in their deepest grief, and he's now a renowned evidential medium, an author, and a mentor. And he's known as the Boston Medium, or Scott Allan, the Psychic Medium. And he has a lot of interesting things to say. So welcome to the show, Scott. I'm so happy you joined us.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for having me. This is great. Happy to be here with you.
You have a lot of things going on. And I wanted you to talk a little bit, and it's all in your book, your autobiography, called A Funeral Director's Journey from Mourning to Mediumship. I suggest to everyone, those who are interested in mediumship or want to be a mediumship, grab a hold of that book.
This is it. It's actually In the Presence of Light, which is the tagline is A Funeral Director's Journey, because that's how it went from me, you know. But the book is In the Presence of Light. So if you're looking for it
I'm sorry, I said it all backwards. So
it's all right. That's all right. That's all right. Good.
But you had an amazing journey. And so I'd love to start where you want to start, of how you got hit by spirit.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is I worked in the funeral home. Gosh, I was about 16 or 17 when I started working in the funeral home. And I was washing cars and mowing lawns at the time. I wasn't, obviously doing anything funeral related, but one thing led to another. And I went to school, and then I got my license, and then I worked for a couple of different places and bought my first funeral home, and then the second, and then the third. And, it's funny. This is not something I ever saw on the horizon. It was something I always thought was interesting. And maybe that was Spirit's way of nudging me along, because I thought it was fascinating, but I was a little bit of a skeptic. And, when you work in a funeral home, it's not something you do typically, you know what I mean? You join the Lions Club. You don't talk to dead people. So, I mean, it was kind of, they lock you up for these kinds of things, I think. But, it was
not anymore.
Not anymore. So, years ago, my mother was always fascinated by it. And we had gone together to see Sylvia Browne. I don't know if you remember her from the Montel years ago. She had come to Boston with John Holland, and John opened up for her. And I remember she came out, and we were near the front, and I don't know, it was like during either the break or after the show was over. I don't remember. It was so many years ago, but she came up to me and we were talking, and she says, you have a really strong psychic sense. Did you know that? Did you know you're psychic? And my mother kind of chuckled, and I said to my mother, I said, she may think I'm psychic, but I think she's psycho, because there's no chance that any of this is real. And, I mean, I thought, she was real. I believed that she was real, but, like, why me? I didn't see any of that happening. So it wasn't until later on, as I was getting ready to leave the business, that things started to percolate a little bit, and I became more and more aware. If I look back in hindsight, and that's what the book is about, because I looked back in hindsight and I could see that I was always exactly where I was supposed to be. I mean, this was the route I was traveling. And there were many times where I was just miserable. I lived in Worcester County, up in the hills. It was kind of rural for the most part. My family wasn't there. My cousins weren't there. I really, a lot of times I just felt sort of like I wasn't really home. I wasn't in the right place. I never felt like that. I mean, I had friends and things, but I was unhappy. And I wondered, why am I here? what is the point of this? And
And
then
this is, you're an adult at this point.
I'm an adult at this
Yeah,
point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and going back into the childhood, and your mother took you to Sylvia Brown. This is funeral business, was this a family business that you
Um,
stuck in, as you came into it by yourself?
yeah. Well, my grandparents had owned a flower shop for decades. And
Okay.
when I was young, I mean, I used to live next door to them, and then we moved up to northern Mass because my dad had been commuting. And so my grandparents would pick me up at holidays and I would go deliver with my grandfather. And one of the places we would go was the funeral home. And they knew the funeral directors really well. So one day we went in and they were adjusting a body in the casket, and it was the strangest thing. I can remember it almost like it was yesterday. They were pulling this body up on the pillow and talking about the Patriots and what their kids were doing, and what was going on for vacation, and everything but exactly what was happening. And I remember being so totally like fixed on it. Why are they not feeling anything? How can they just go through this motion and not feel that someone has just lost a father or a husband or grandfather? And I had this emotion for someone. I mean, I wasn't standing there crying, but I felt like there's something wrong with this picture. It was like two different worlds going on here at the same time. And it was, I think that planted a seed in me, and I was probably like 10 years old, but it planted a seed in me that I felt like I could do this better because I cared more. I mean, that's not true, of course. I know now as an adult that you can't walk through, the funeral home crying all the time. You're no use to anybody, right? Life goes on. You have to pay attention to the grief when it's supposed to be paid attention to, and then you go on with your life. But that, I think, was the moment that I realized there was an empathic side to me, which in hindsight now I see that. And so I I went on and developed this sort of idea that this might be something I would do. And the whole working with the dead kind of thing, it was something I sort of shoved over here. That wasn't something I ever really wanted to do. It was the people. It was the connection to the people. But I did it because that's how you start out. And I had to learn to accept it in order to get to the other stuff. And so I did. And there were moments where like weird synchronicities would happen, but I would chalk it up to coincidence. It was just coincidence. And like I said, it wasn't until I got out that things really heated up.
Moving in. But then you were and found yourself as an adult,
Yeah.
working. You had more than one funeral home, and you're like disconnected. Like, why am I doing this? This makes no doesn't reach me anymore.
Well, it wasn't even that. I really was passionate about what I did. I was on the board of directors for the Massachusetts Funeral Directors Association. I mean, I was really in it. And I enjoyed working with families and taking them through. I think what the problem was is that I was so far away from people I cared about. And my
Uh,
parents were getting older. My mom had been very, very, very sick.
mhm.
And we thought we were going to lose her. And I thought, like, what am I doing here all by myself? You know what I mean? I was just kind
Yeah.
of away from all the things that mattered. And so I think that's where some of this was really starting to get to me. I didn't have any breaks. I had no coverage for the most part.
Oh, you were
So,
overwhelmed. Yeah.
well, yeah, I was overwhelmed. I was just kind
Yeah.
of burnt out. It wasn't the business as much as it was how I was doing it. I think, honestly, if I had had the funeral home near where I grew up, I probably would never have left. I would probably still be doing it more than likely. And, I don't know what would have happened with all of this, if I would have been able to juggle the two of them or what would have happened. But I think that was just, I really feel like there's a reason for everything. I think that was spirit putting me there. Get your training, learn to work with grieving people because I've got bigger plans for you. And then they got me out. And that's really what it feels like.
I think they would have done it no matter where you were. It sounds
Yeah.
like your soul was like, we have a plan. So you had some really interesting experience happen. You said like just like spirit was just it was huge. It was life changing. What
Yeah, it
happened?
really was. Well, it started, like I said, it started in the funeral home. I remember walking around and all of a sudden, and I had built this building from the ground up, and I remember knowing that there was somebody here. Something was like, I could feel it. And I thought that was the strangest thing. And then I could hear them walking around upstairs or coming up
Mhm.
and down the steps, and people, that would come in and work for me wouldn't understand that. They couldn't pick up on that. They weren't getting that feeling, and I didn't really understand why that was. And I started to get an awareness of scents, like smells, like perfumes and cigars and that kind of stuff. And I thought, wait, like, where is this coming from? And so I didn't think much of it. I thought, well, maybe the place is haunted. It was kind of weird because it wasn't haunted from day one. You know what I mean? Where did this happen? But you're not
Yeah.
thinking, oh, I must be a medium. This is great. I just thought, there's something going on here that I can't explain. It wasn't dangerous or anything. It was just weird. So when I finally got out, my competitor down the street had offered to buy the funeral homes, and I was like, fine, I'm good. I'm good. Let's do it. This is the opportunity. Let's get out. And I moved home. And I have a friend who is older than me by about 10 years. And so she was, not quite retired at the time. She worked for MIT. She was getting up there, and she said to me one day, I kind of knew she had an interest in this stuff, but I didn't really know to what extent. She said, "We're going to this museum. It's an historical museum for the city of Revere in Massachusetts, and it used to be a church rectory many many years ago. But they say it's haunted, and we're going to go check it out. Do you want to come now that you're around? If you want to come." And I thought, oh, I don't know. It's not really my speed. I thought, again, you don't do that as a funeral director. It's not something I ever did. So I thought about it and I decided to go. And I didn't have any equipment. I just went to hang out. And honestly, it was like watching paint dry. I mean, nothing was happening. And they had,
It's pretty
well,
close.
yeah, it was nothing, but they had this little, it was like a transistor radio, but it scans stations really quickly. And they said, "If do you know anybody's name here?" It was nothing, but I remember recording it with I had brought a recorder, or it could have even been my phone. I don't remember back then, but I recorded it, and I heard nothing until I got home.
Really?
And when I listened to the recording, I heard about 10 or 11 of them calling my name.
No way.
God, Scott. And I thought, oh, that's wild. So I called my friend up the next day and I said, listen, look at this. She says, Scott, that's weird. That doesn't happen. I mean, that's never happened to me before. That's really weird. So, I did one or two others with her. And again, it's not like TV. It's kind of boring, but it was the social aspect of it that was sort of interesting. But I bought one of those little radio things because I wanted to see,
Mhm.
if I could do it like somewhere else, you know what I mean? Like if it would happen. And so I got it at home. It was delivered and I put the batteries in and I turned it on and the voice said, "Talk to Scott." I said, "I'm Scott." Like immediately,
Wow.
like, what's your name? "This is David." And I
Oh,
said, "What is going on here?" So I called her up again and I said, "Julie, check this out." She's like, "Listen, don't do that in your house. That's like an Ouija board. You don't want to invite that stuff in and around where you live." And I say, "Okay, no taken." And I didn't, but I was fascinated by it. And I had hoped that somebody connected to her, like one of her friends or people that she worked with, would be able to tell me like what was going on and what had happened at the funeral home. Like, why had that happened there? And well, this David, it was constant. It was constant. It was always David after that. I remember about a week later, a friend of mine was at work, her work,
mhm.
and this man walks in and asks for me. And she says, "Geez, he's not here, but I do know him. I'll take a message for you." And he said, "Okay, just tell him David stopped by." And I'm like, "Who's David?" And she sent me the like security camera. It was like a Ring doorbell or something, like the Ring camera or whatever it was. She
Yeah.
sent it to me. And it was nobody I ever knew. And he didn't call and he didn't come back. But anytime I turned on the recorder, David came through. It was always David. And so I started to think, okay, there's something wrong with me. I mean, this isn't normal stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I was recording it because I thought, if you can understand what they're saying, like if you can hear it and I can hear it, um, I may be possessed, but I'm not mentally ill. And that was important to me because I was afraid that I couldn't tell anybody. She was the only person I told. And she went ghost hunting, so she didn't care. She was like okay with it. But I mean, everybody else, I was just afraid they would lock me up.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But they would question you, and you certainly weren't getting validation, so.
I was, but I didn't think that's what it was. I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I must be a medium. So they were trying to figure out what was going on, why every place around me was haunted. My office, my house, why are all these places like the funeral home, why are all these places full of spirits? And they basically said to me one day, I don't think it's the locations. I think it's you. I'm like, what do you mean it's me? Like, do I have some kind of like spirit attachment? And they said, I don't know. But it feels like they follow you everywhere. Like, we don't get that kind of stuff wherever we go. I thought, well, that's really strange. So, what do I do with that? After a few more months of this going on and on and on, I had met this woman who is a medium. She lives in New Hampshire somewhere. She's not really a practicing medium, but she is a medium. She just doesn't do it professionally. But she was the only one I knew. And I called her up and I said, I've got a problem here. I think there's a spirit after me. Like, I really don't know if I picked something up somewhere along the way. And she got back to me and we talked for, I mean, it had to be 2 or 3 hours on the phone one night. And she said, I think this is you. I mean, I think it's you. I don't know how that's possible. Like, where you been all my life? Like how is this possible?
Yeah.
In hindsight, I think it was there all my life, but working in a funeral home, I kind of blocked it out, is what
Of
I
course, yeah,
think.
yeah.
I think that's what was going on. So I worked with her for a while and I didn't believe her. Like, I thought she was full of baloney. It all felt like a bunch of woo woo. But she introduced me to a woman who was a shaman. And she used to be connected with the Circles of Wisdom, in Methuen. She was a manager there or something at one time. She lives on the Cape, and she's confirming what this woman is telling me, the other medium. And I said, well, I said, I don't know. I mean, it seems a little weird, but you're going to have to, I need to learn how to shut it off. I mean, I can't have this
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, yeah.
And it was getting
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
point where I wasn't even asking for it. It was just like I felt it, like the weight of spirit on top of me. It felt like sometimes it was sitting on my shoulders. And so she did help me shut it off. And even then, I was so skeptical. She would tell me, go and ask your friends to bring their friends to you and just see what you feel like. Go with the first thing that hits your mind. What's the first thing you get? Go with it and see. And somehow they understood. I mean, it was rough. I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't know how to control it. It was all visual back then. It was like in my face.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
changed a lot over the years, but
It sounds like you were clairvoyant from the get-go.
very much at the
Yeah,
very beginning. I mean, that's pretty much all it was because it was not fine-tuned at all. Now it's much more subtle and nuanced, and it is clairvoyant to a point, but it's not like it used to be. Now it's a smorgasbord of everything. You know what I mean? I get a little of
yeah.
the hearing, a little of the feeling,
Perfect. Yeah, I
stuff.
think
Yeah.
that's the best way. Yeah, you were saying that you had a little clairgusting going on while you were at the funeral. Um,
Yeah, Claire Gustins, I don't know so much. I mean, I do get that like really rarely, but
and,
it was what do you call it? The smell clear.
aliens.
Oh, is that what it is? Alien? The smell is alien?
Gustine
Oh,
and aliens. I don't know if Gustine is his taste and
taste is
clairalience
Gustins,
is,
I think. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's taste. I do get that. And again, that's not something I get all the time, but I remember being with a group of about 12 or 14 people at a class in this little small room, like just enough to fit about 12 or 14 people. And somebody decided it'd be a great idea if they like took their cologne out or perfume and sprayed it, all over them. And I was so annoyed because I mean, I like a nice scent, but I couldn't breathe. And I said to my friend that I was with next to me, I said, I'm going to go out and get a breath of fresh air because I can't breathe. She says, why? What's the matter? You okay? And I said, oh, I don't know who sprayed the cologne. I didn't see them do it, but I can't breathe. She said, oh, that's weird. I don't smell anything.
I
I said,
love
what do
that.
you mean you don't smell anything? This is crazy. I'm so glad it doesn't happen like that anymore to me. That, once you learn to control it, but it was scary for a while. It was really wild.
Yeah. When I first was waking up to some of these different clairs, I think one of the first things, I'd always been clairvoyant, but I had two little kids and I dropped them off for daycare and then I'd go to work and I'd miss them a lot because they were really tiny. They were still
Yeah.
babies. And I could taste, right around lunchtime, I could taste what they were having for lunch.
Oh
And I
my
said,
God.
I'm not eating mac and cheese right now. Why am I tasting mac? So I'd check in later with the daycare. How's it going? What you guys have for lunch? Mac and cheese.
Oh my God. Can I tell you a funny story? I mean, it's
Yeah,
along
yeah.
those lines. I remember, and this is when I was trying to figure everything out. I was visiting a friend who was at her hair salon and she was working on a client. And every time I would get near her, I didn't put two and two together, but I was walking around and like talking to people. And when I get close to her, I could feel like mouth pain, like tooth pain.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what is wrong? Like, oh my God, I need to make an appointment with the dentist. I feel like maybe I've got a
Yeah,
cavity or something. Like, I don't know. You're
yeah.
just starting to notice it. But as I pulled away, I'm like, oh, I'm fine again. And then I realized when I got close to her to start talking again, it happened. And I said, this is when I was starting to kind of like figure things out, but I didn't really know what I was figuring out. And I said to the woman, I was talking to her, the woman in the chair, I said, I have a weird question for you. Are you having dental work done or something? She said, oh my God. She says, I have wisdom teeth. They're impacted. It's driving me crazy. And right at that point, it went away and that was it. And I never had it again. And I thought, this is kind of cool, but a little weird all at the same time. Like, what is going on?
Well, and just to say to anyone who's listening is that that's clairsentient. And a
Yeah.
lot of mediums will feel, I'm sure you do too. Oh, you're connecting with somebody and you can feel what they were ill with, what their body felt like, what, even to
Yeah.
what they passed from just in your body. It's just the weirdest thing ever, but it's very real.
It
And
is. And sometimes I get that in a knowing sense, not even or I feel like I'm just being drawn to a certain area without even the pain. You know what I mean? Like sometimes
right.
just,
Yeah.
I don't even know if isn't it strange? Like, I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I don't even know how I get it. I just kind of know it, you know?
That's clear. I
They're
love um
cognizant.
cognizance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love talking about it's like
And all the
I'm a
clairs.
nerd about it. Like clear cognizance, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
so you kind of went through some unusual. Did you ever figure out this David?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's another funny story, but my next door neighbor we park next to each other all the time, and not enough to like hang out, but we're always talking, hi, how are you, that kind of thing. Well, one day I got a call from my mother. I was on my way home, and she said, hey, I went to the senior center today, and they had a medium there, and she was really good, and talked about that for a bit, and then hung up. And as I get home, my next door neighbor is also pulling in her driveway, and I said, hey, Laura, how you doing? She says, good. She said, I'm exhausted, just coming back from the senior center. I said, oh, no kidding. I said, did you go see the medium? Because my mom just called and she was there. She said, oh, you're kidding me. She says, no, I am the medium. I said, wait a minute. You're the medium? And like,
Oh, your
here she
neighbor
is
the whole
next door.
time.
And it never came up. It never came up. And we went and got together and had coffee. She says, we've got to get coffee. So we did. And she's looking at me and she says, who's one of three people around you? Like, who's one of three? I said, nobody. I said, I'm one of two. My father's one of, I think, nine. And my mother was one of two. And my grandmother was one of two. I just don't know anybody that had like three. I think it's you. Did your mom ever lose a child? I said, I don't think so. My mom was kind of an open book. So I think, if I had, I would have
Yeah.
heard about it at some point along the way. But she says, I really think it's you. You should ask her. I said, I don't know. That's weird. I said, I don't know. And so she said to me, well, then who's the D name? Who's David? And I said, what? So I told her the story with David. She went, oh my God, that's it. He's your twin brother. I said, get out of here. She says, I'm telling you, you're one of three. I feel it. I just know it. She says, I really feel like he's your twin brother and he didn't make it and you did. I said, why would I not know this? I mean, this is crazy. Twins does ride in our family, by the way. It runs in our family.
Yeah. Yeah.
My father's brothers are twins and they have children,
Oh, geez.
twins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I never heard that or thought that.
It's hard
So
to know, it's really hard to know if a twin, you'd have to have ultrasounds continuously through the pregnancy to know if
and
there
they
was a
didn't do it
twin.
back. This was the mid
No,
60s. They didn't do this back
right.
then.
No, no, no.
So I said to my mother, I said, by any chance, have you ever lost a child? And she said, yeah, I think so. I said, when? She says, it was probably about 8 or 9 months before you were born. And it was so early that it was kind of a non-event. But then I was pregnant with you. So it didn't, you know what I mean? We just kept going. So it wasn't a big thing. I said, well, why didn't you say anything? She said, it was early. I mean, it wasn't anything we talked about
Yeah,
back then. And
yeah, yeah.
kind of wasn't a big
Oh,
deal.
so no twin from her.
Who knows? If it was 8 or 9 months, it could have been, right?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, how do you, she says 8 or 9 months. Maybe it was a year. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was right then and there. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I kind of go with it and just, I mean, I don't know, go with the twin thing. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it
Yeah,
isn't, but I'm
yeah.
figuring maybe that's who this is. And,
Well, son of a
you know,
gun.
son of a gun. And it doesn't happen the way it used to happen. Like, I don't get all that like random stuff. Like, when I'm done, I'm done. I'm off. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen to me anymore. And then you start dealing with imposter syndrome because maybe it's gone,
Oh, I know
getting
that
it in
one.
your
Yeah,
face,
yeah, yeah.
oh God.
Definitely, definitely.
And you have to trust. Then you just go on trust.
You do. You have a relationship with your guides, and
Yeah.
it is going to be the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's not a It's funny. It's an art. It's not a
But they've never stood me up.
good for you.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that used to be my big fear. I'm going to sit in front of somebody who wants a reading, and did they go for coffee? Like, where are they? But it doesn't really
It's
happen. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen. They're always there.
Sometimes spirit is always there, but sometimes the sitter, the person listening to the reading, kind of isn't there. They just don't
That's true.
get what you're saying, or they don't want to get what you're saying, or they're overwhelmed, or they just want to keep it quiet because it's a little intimidating.
Yeah, and I think grief too can be kind of a barrier to this. I mean, you would think it would be the opposite. Like, I'm in such a state of grief that they would want to show up to let me
Yeah,
know they're okay. But I really think sometimes when you're in that mental state, it's not the best time to have a reading. It really
yeah,
isn't.
yeah. I think mediums used to say that spirit wasn't ready to come through for at least 6 months. And my experience was a spirit could come through 15 minutes later. It was so
100%.
quick. And I finally kind of sat down and I said, I wonder why all these mediums are saying this, until I was really had a series of people who just newly lost their loved ones just 2 minutes ago, practically, and they were not ready.
That's
So I think the mediums are really talking about, you're not ready for at least 6 months after the passing, because you've gotten used to the idea. The grief is there, it's real, but I feel like you're traumatized for the first year of losing somebody
oh,
very important to you. I mean, I don't.
Lord.
You've seen it, in your work even
Yeah.
before you were a medium. So anyway,
Yeah, I had a woman and her mother come up from, I think it was North Carolina, and they were up here visiting and decided they wanted to book a reading, and they did, and they sat with me. And I don't remember who came. We were talking, and somebody was coming through, and I became aware of this little boy in spirit that was there. And I said, "Oh my God!" I said, "There's a little boy here," and it's like I felt like he was running around and kind of playing hide, just very playful. And I described how he passed, and she said, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe this. I talked to my brother this morning. He's back in North Carolina. His best friend's little boy died this morning. They found him,
oh,
and it would had like an asthma attack or something."
oh my goodness.
And I'm sure that's what it was. And I thought, oh my God, he came through to her to let them know he was okay, because I don't think he could have ever come through with the state of grief his parents must have been in. But
Oh,
that was just hours later. Here he was.
oh my
So
goodness.
it's wild.
Oh, sweetheart. Oh, what a Peter. He just wanted to know. He must have really looked hard for a situation that he
I
could.
don't know. I feel like they just know. I always say it's like, remember like Kmart years ago, and you'd go to Kmart and they'd light the blue light, and then everybody would come running. That's what it feels like. We set up a reading and the blue light goes up, and then they come
Absolutely.
running. That's what I don't know. He may have been only 5, but he has an old soul, I think, and they know
Oh,
they know what it's all
probably.
about.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's
Or
so
somebody, his grandmother, and was have helping him. Was like, well, let's go see Scott. And Scott's going to see you. So and so is going to know you.
it's true. It's like they do the math. It's I It blows my mind. It still does.
Yeah. I want to take a quick little break because we're on the half hour, and
Yeah,
I want to repeat your book. I'll say it right this time. In the
yeah.
Presence of Light: A Funeral Director's Journey
There it
from
is. Yeah.
Mourning to Mediumship. And I is it on Zoom? Is it on
It's
Amazon?
on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Goodreads. It's all over the place. And for
Okay.
anybody who knows, and I don't know if you do, you know Joe Shield?
Yes, we do.
Joe wrote the foreword to my book.
Oh, how
I thought
lovely.
was so
Yeah.
nice. He's got the
Oh, nice.
forward there. Joe is one of my, or is my mentor, really. He is my mentor down at the Journey Within. So anybody that knows Joe, Joe wrote the forward to the book. He's great.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I know Joe. I was ordained through the Journey Within, and once in a blue moon, I'll have a chance to talk to him. But
Yeah,
he's a spirit artist as well.
he is talented.
Yeah, and you have a couple of events coming up. I want to talk to you. First, let's talk about your shows. Are you still doing those the podcasts and the paranormal TV shows?
I
Still going?
don't do, well, I don't, yeah. So my podcast is called The Enlightened Life, and new episodes are out every Thursday morning at 5:30 a.m. Eastern, because we record them ahead of time. They're not live anymore. I used to have a live one, but I feel like I can really edit it and make it the way I want it to come out. So we do those. They come out every Thursday morning, and this everything from mediums to healers to people who are into like crystals and gems to people who will show you how to forgive and get through grief and all kinds of different topics. So it's not just mediumship, but it's things that kind of fill you up and make you feel good, you know? So there's that. I had a woman on yesterday. The episode will air in March, but her grandfather, um, I won't say he was a Holocaust survivor because the family lived here, but his mom and brothers and father had all moved back because they just didn't feel like this was home. He stayed because he had met his wife. And when they went back, they were taken by the Nazis and they were all killed. And he lost his entire family. And she wrote a book about this called Hands of Gold. And it was very, very moving. And I had her on. That'll come on in March. And so even those kinds of shows, I think, can just you know, bring out the human condition and let people know that you can persevere through some of this.
Could you say it one more time, and we could find it on Spotify or any
My podcast is called The Enlightened Life Podcast. Yeah,
podcast
The
and any
Enlightened Life.
podcast? Okay, place beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And then you have a couple of events coming up locally in New England.
I do. I've got some fun stuff coming up. So, actually, this Thursday night, so this is live. So, this is the day after tomorrow. I will be in Fitchburg at Salem Sisters Magic Treasures. It's a metaphysical shop in Fitchburg. I will be doing a little intimate demonstration of medium there. The following Thursday night, I'm at the VFW in Billerica, which is where they have the church service.
Church, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
there all the time. Yeah, I was hoping
yeah.
to make it to you. I really hope I can get down there.
Oh, I would love to have you come. Yeah, no, so I will be there next Thursday night. That's at 7. The following week, I think it might be a Friday night. I have to look. All of a sudden, I don't remember. I think it's the 27th, but that's in Peabody at the Peabody Marriott. And there's 3 of us. There's myself, medium Karen Tatro, and Christopher Brown from Maine. We'll be together delivering messages. It's a 2.5-hour show with an
Well,
intermission. But, the 3 of us will be delivering messages there.
oh,
So that'll be
beautiful.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, beautiful.
And I just got pegged to do a cruise in December. I'm going to be traveling to the Eastern Caribbean. I was in Naples working a couple of weeks ago, and a reading with a woman who ended up owning a travel agency. And she asked if I would consider being the ambassador for a mediumship metaphysical cruise to the Eastern Caribbean next
Oh,
December on the
that's
Carnival celebration.
nice.
So that's
Oh,
fun.
dream job. Good. That's fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Anything to get someplace warm in the winter.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I hope you have a blast. If Where can people find you? You have a website, you have a Facebook page.
Everything, all of the above. And if you look on my little thing behind me over here, you can see my web address, which is mediumscottallan.com, Allan, and everything's there. You can find the podcast. You can find out how to book a reading with me. You can find out how to have a private event if you want to do that. I do private, home events, or come to one of my big
Yeah.
demonstrations. Yeah. And I'm going to be in Colorado Springs too, I think in
Oh,
June. So I can't wait for that. That hasn't been put out
well,
there yet. Yeah,
that's
a lot of
terrific.
different stuff going on.
Oh, so get going onto Scott's website is Medium Allan.
Scott Allan, Medium
Oh,
Scott Allan.
maybe ScottAllan.com. I know my brain is just kind of marbles right now. MediumScottAllan.com.
Yeah.
And you're active continuously throughout the year. So whenever you listen to this podcast, just go to his site and you'll find him somewhere in the world.
Yeah. I like to keep busy. I love doing the work. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah,
I love
how long have
doing
you
it.
been doing it for?
Well, I think this is like, it's going to be 6 years, 5, 6 years, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I would say semi-professionally, like really professionally, maybe like 3.5, or something like that. But I started really deciding that I could do readings maybe about 5 years ago,
Oh,
but it was practice. It was
practice,
practice back
practice,
then.
practice. Yeah. Yeah. I studied for quite a few years before I felt like I could step out. And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have to believe in it first. I don't mean believe in mediumship. I did believe in that. I just didn't believe
believe
it
it
was that
yourself.
I had it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that
I had to
imposter
prove it to
syndrome. I'm
myself.
making this up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
But you're doing well.
not
Yeah.
so much anymore, but you still have those moments from time to time. Like, really, I hope this isn't a coincidence because, we've all met those mediums who walk around the grocery store saying, "Oh my God, that woman over there." I'm not like that. I don't get
No,
that.
I don't like that
I'm
either.
just completely shut down.
I can't be like that. I just would not. I need to have my life. And
The truth. It's the
yeah,
truth.
yeah, yeah. So what made you decide? How can I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask the question. You had this spiritual experience, you had your neighbor was a medium, all these things. What made you take that first class or that first step up? Like, I got to figure out what I'm doing.
Well, what happened was it was very raw, but I would have friends bring their friends, and somehow they were able to understand. And I'm getting like the names of their grandparents and when they died and, whatever else, you get. And I thought, this is crazy. It's got to be a coincidence. But I remember one day I was sitting at home and I just kind of felt like, okay, it's not. It's real. I don't know why it's real. Okay, I trust it. Fine. I'll take some classes. And the first class I took was with Joe Shield and John Holland up at, in Methuen. And
Yeah,
it was an advanced class. And I remember saying to Joy, the woman who's the shaman that helped me, she said, "Oh, you'll be fine. Just go." I said, "Well, what if it's beyond me?" She says, "Yeah, you'll be fine. Just go. Just go. It'll be all right." So I went and I realized I kind of held my own, it was okay, but it was the first class I'd ever taken. It was a 2-day class. And then I took some online stuff. There was some online classes I took with a woman in New Jersey and then there was a bunch of different things I took. And then I got into the Joe Shield mentorship program because I
right,
really wanted to have that personal connection. And that by far has been the best thing I've ever done. Um,
great.
I don't know if I can say that it changed my mediumship, but I think it helped change the presentation of my mediumship. And it also helped me with my confidence levels, I think,
Okay.
which I think improves everything. Once you believe in yourself and trust that they will be there, I think it
Yeah,
changes everything.
yeah, and it sounds like you did a lot of readings. You were able to present a lot of different things. Just
Yeah.
the more you do it, and
Yeah.
the better you learn about yourself. You learn about your own relationship with spirit, your own sensitivities. How is spirit coming through to me? How am I understanding it? That takes time and practice. And
Does. And you know what was one of the biggest lessons I learned about like being accurate and doing a reading was that don't think about it before you do it. I used to sit there and think like, okay, who's here? How many people? How many women? How many men? How'd they die? Would they, and I would
line them up. Yeah.
line them up. I got to have them all set because if I get out there and they don't show up, then I'm going to be standing there, but I never am just standing there. And
Yeah.
the best thing that I do is not even I don't plan
Yeah.
it anymore. Like I just let them
Absolutely.
come through. I just let them come
Absolutely.
through.
Yeah. That's actually the big thing I learned too is I'm better off not thinking about it. I go up totally blank. I might play Wordle, just to get my mind blank and empty, and
Yeah.
then go up there. And as soon as I say I'm on and I look at people, and I really like that visual.
Right.
When we're doing it on Zoom and I can't see the name, maybe I'll see the names, but I can't see the people. And I'm going without that connection, and I can still do it, but I miss it. I love to see.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they start talking. They said, "Okay, we were just waiting for you to be quiet so we can start talking to you."
I know. I know. It's funny. I don't do phone readings generally. People will ask. I kind of like to be able to see the person. I
Mhm.
don't know why that's important. I probably could do it, but I just,
But you'd be fine because it's spirit talking to you.
yeah.
And it is the
Right.
person, but maybe who knows? But I like the visual, textual kind of. That's one of the sensations that feeds me. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it sounds like you have a lot of different things that feed you and talk to you, and um, in
Only when
terms
I
of
sit down.
spirit. But
Yeah. Only when I sit down. I sit in front of my computer. I sit at my desk or table as it is. I have a table out in the other room, and then they show up.
they know that's your on switch, I suppose.
Yeah. They know when I'm on.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that. But I think it also, depends on the person sitting. Like you said, it depends on the person sitting across from you,
right.
where they're at. It's a three-way conversation with spirit, and
Yeah,
you all have to kind of be present in the moment for it to happen.
absolutely. And sometimes what spirit has in mind isn't what you could ever have thought of before. So you have to be ready for spirit to do their woo trip,
Right.
um, whatever that is that they had planned for the person in front of them, because it is a healing session for the person. It's very healing in ways we can't even imagine. It'd be 4 years down the road, and then we hear the story. Oh, that's what was going on.
Isn't it the truth though? And I love when you get those emails or those phone calls that said that, it was so healing for me because I know that whoever it is okay and
Yeah,
they're in a good space.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes. What do you think is your favorite kind of? I don't know. I think you're really into the mediumship. Have you been doing the paranormal, or I mean, what is
No,
your
I don't really do that. I mean, that's the
okay?
funny thing is I kind of opened up that way, but it's not really my world.
Rose, okay.
I do the show on Amazon and Paraflix. So Dark Echoes, I have 2 episodes this year, season 2, uh, and they have other mediums from in different places that also do it. And they take you and they drop you off in this location where you don't know where you're going, and you kind of like read the space. It's sort of fun. It's fun being on set and the camera and all that kind of stuff. That is fun. But that's about it. I'm really not connected to the paranormal in that way. Um, it's not to say that I would never, I mean, I know people that do it and maybe but that's not where I use my mediumship. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
not how I use it. And I don't really go to these places much anymore, unless I'm filming or something, you know?
right. Well, so you do one-on-one
Yeah.
sessions with people, and you also do
Yeah.
demonstrations, what I would call demonstration at these
Right.
events. And
Right.
sounds like you like to work both ways.
I do. I do like the private readings. I also enjoy, these private demonstrations where I will go to someone's house or whatever and do
Yeah,
that for,
yeah.
10, 12, 6, 8, whatever it is, people. But I love the larger demonstrations. And I don't know why. I just do. I love the larger demonstrations. And so I tend to do a lot of them. I
Good
feel
for
like
you.
that's my comfort zone.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. So, well, once again, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the grab hold of Scott Allan's book, In the Presence of Light: A Funeral Director's Journey from Mourning to Mediumship, and then to his website. I'm gonna have you say that one out loud.
mediumscottallan.com,
Perfect.
Allan,
Yeah.
and it's right behind me
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
kind of
Allan. Yeah.
Allan, yeah.
Yeah, love it. Love it. So, is there anything that you would like to advice you want to give to somebody who's either for the first time thinking of getting a mediumship reading, or maybe another person who's having oddball things happen? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're having a reading, I think be open. It's not, in my experience, it's not what people always think that it is. So, you may want to talk to your mother, your father, your grandmother, and it may be uh, your uncle's ex-wife that shows up and, first to kind of open the door. And I don't know why that is, but sometimes, you get people you didn't expect. So be open to whoever comes. And sometimes they're doing their work too. If they felt like, they didn't spend enough time with you, they may want to come through just to say, I know that, and I'm sorry,
Mhm.
and I'm okay. And then they bring the person you want to bring through. We can't reach through the veil and just grab people. I feel like they have to sort of come
Absolutely.
from
Yeah, yeah,
individually.
absolutely. What's your sense of people healing and doing their work once they've passed? I feel like there's a lot of that that goes on, but we
Yeah,
don't talk about it that much. What's your take on that?
I think you're right. I almost feel that they come through not so much because we want to talk to them, but because they want to talk to us. I almost feel as if they have work to do. My own sense of this is that they cross and then have this full and complete awareness of everything they ever did, good and bad, and how there was a ripple effect with everyone. I think, we've talked about, in Christianity at least, we talked about the judgment. And I think
Yeah.
judge ourselves more than anybody else. And so
Oh,
when they come through, I think that's the work. I've had people who were not nice people come through and say, I know I wasn't a nice person. I know that. And I'm
yeah.
sorry. And I love you.
Yeah. And I want to ask you, people don't want to hear from them. They don't
Yeah.
want the not nice person, the dad that was missing or the alcoholic mother.
Right.
Please, I don't want to talk to her. But those are the most important
I agree.
connections.
I agree. And I always feel like we have to approach this with pure hearts too, because while there's no judgments and you're allowed to feel what you feel about however you were treated when that person was here, but I do think that I wouldn't want to be in the way of their redemption. I don't want to be in the way of them going through the work to be a better person, better soul, better whatever it is. I feel like that's part of what they need. And it's very little for me to sit back and just listen to that, because God knows I'm not perfect and I may need to do that someday as well. And I hope someone will listen to me if that's the case.
Are we willing to sit and listen? Yes, I remember you, Scott. Yeah, I remember you really aggravated me when you did that. Or what? Yeah, same here. The list could just be hugely long, and I don't want to know about it right now, but it probably is.
It's true. It's true. I think that people have work to do. And sometimes it's not about that either. I think in my experience, they don't care about stuff. They don't care about clothing, houses, money, cars, or any of this stuff. I don't even think they care whether they were cremated, buried, where they're buried. None of this seems to be important because they're not identified with that. They're still here. They're still with us. But they care about us. They care about the soul, the person. And so many times I've had spirit come through and say, listen, stop beating yourself up. I know you weren't there when I passed. It's okay. I didn't cross alone. There were people there waiting for me. Don't beat yourself up over this. You need to be okay.
That is. I've heard that plenty of times,
Yeah.
right? It's part of the grief. I think guilt is part of the grief. Often, if spirit, if that message could really get through, I think that would be terrific healing for the person holding on to that guilt.
Yeah. It's not just about them doing the work. I think it's also about them making sure that we're okay. I think that's
Right,
important.
yeah, it's important. It's all, yeah, that is the other
Yeah.
piece of it, right? And what would you say to somebody who feels there's a lot of people feel called to do mediumship, and I'm always amazed at how many people do it. There, it's not that they're working. Some of them are working to be out there. Some of them are working just to understand the mediumship. I don't know if you've taught yet, but what would you give as advice to somebody who's thinking of stepping in or wondering what the heck this is?
Yeah. I've been running a beginner's mediumship
Okay,
circle. And that's, I've got people in it that I'm not sure where they're at, to be honest with you. I think some are a little bit further along than others. Some may be just stepping in and getting their feet wet. I think really just, I think we all have a little psychic something. I don't know if we all have a mediumship. I haven't quite figured that out yet. But I do think that if you just sit back and calm your mind and stop and listen, feel,
Yeah.
the exercises we do, is we do a different Claire every week. And, what does my body feel like? What does my leg feel like? You have to know who you are before you know who you're not. Like if you know that you have chronic stomach issues and then spirit comes in and you have a stomach ache, well, it might not be spirit. It might just be you. I feel like just learning to know
Oh,
who you
yeah,
are,
yeah,
and sitting quietly with
yeah.
yourself and saying to spirit, okay, I trust you. So if you have a message for me or something you want me to show me, I'm available. But you have to understand how they're going to do that.
Yeah. It's where you end and where they start.
Right.
Where your thoughts are your thoughts and where their impressions. Yeah, that is a fascinating. I think everyone should learn that. As a matter of fact, but it is a really important part of being the medium.
Right.
It, know thyself.
Know thyself.
Know
That really
thyself.
is true. It really is true. And don't think that because, Scott reads this way or Nancy gets her messages that way, that you're going to get it that way. You have to find your own. It's
Yeah.
different with every person. There are similarities, but there's also differences.
And I say that a lot in my classes in the times that I teach is like, who are you as a medium? What is your mission? What is your strength? What is your gift? And
Right.
back in the day when I was trained, it was very it was a little bit rote, it was a little bit move yourself into this, make yourself do this, you need to do this. And sometimes I felt lost in the sauce, and I felt like I'm not a medium. Who do I think I am trying to do this work? Because I can't
Yes.
do this particular thing. But then I turn around and do something that nobody else in the room had ever done,
Yeah.
and it's like, how do you do that? Well, it just came. I was allowing it to flow, and when I stopped trying, I felt this flow come through me, and this information came along with the flow. And that's the best way that I can describe to my students.
That's how you know you're in it.
So you're in
You
it.
know, and when you don't even know how you got what you got, sometimes I'll get off of
Yeah,
a reading or whatever, and I think, where the heck did that come from?
I know.
Why did I say that? What made me say that?
Yeah. So when I do the drawings, I look at the drawing and they'll pull out a picture and go, how did that happen?
Yeah, right,
Go on
right.
faith that it is what it is. And it's like you have to be present, allow it to happen, and then get out of the way all at the same time.
Get in there and then get out. That's what it feels like. I say that all the time. Get in there, then get out of the way because you need to just make room for them to do
Absolutely.
their
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Well, I've just heard wonderful things about you, Scott, and I hope that everyone listening will look for you, either listen to you on your podcast or get a reading, or go see Scott at one of the shows if you're available. If he's locally, and it was a wonderful experience being with Scott, and I'm really very happy that you came on the
Thank you. So
podcast.
happy you had me. It's been a real pleasure.
And so for now, I just want to remind all my listeners that the people I bring on onto this podcast are available and very willing to work with whoever I'm talking to. So please don't be shy. Reach out, because this is all about you building your own spiritual toolbox. And so for now, everyone, go in love, go in peace, stay safe, and really reach out to spirit. And that's all for now.
Thank you for joining the Angelscapes podcast. We hope you've gained new insights and inspiration for your journey to uncover and access your soul's power. For more information and a deeper dive into finding clarity in your life, go to angelscapes.com. Remember to subscribe so you can be part of the discussion. It may just change your life. See you next time.